most YouTubers are only relevant when they're talking about their brand new Lamborghini this and Lamborghini that. And that got me thinking, I don't like Lamborghinis, so I went out and bought something completely the polar opposite. And I think today, I'll show you what it is. This is a Packard Six Sedan. Now, Packard were like the Rolls-Royce of America. And what this is a British-built one, which is right-hand drive. And that's because this one, if you come and have a look, was actually built in London. So it says on the back here, on this light, Packard, London. So I don't know how many of these are actually about. So if someone else has a London-built Packard, let me know, do get in touch, because I've never ever seen one. And anyway, this car in 1923 would have cost under $5,000. And in today's money, that would be about £84,000. And I spent nothing near that on it, so don't worry about that. Now, it's powered by a 6-cylinder, 54 horsepower, which is actually quite a big engine for a car of its age. 4 litre. It is incredibly simple. You've got your carburetor, you've got your generator, which on this one doesn't work at the minute. It's not an alternator, it's a generator. There is a difference, and that's actually driven off timing gears, which is also unusual. Most cars, the alternator is driven off a belt. So you couldn't actually have an alternator problem with this, but I've got a problem with it. It doesn't seem to charge. Anyway, you've got your distributor on the top, and your 6 spark plugs, real easy to get at. And the only thing that I find a bit unusual with this car is it's got this thing here, which is something to do with how it gets fuel. I've no idea about the science about it, but it doesn't have a fuel pump. Someone will tell you in the comments exactly what that is. But what I have realised with this car is if you do not remember to turn the fuel off every time you finish with it, what it does is just chuck all the petrol out the fuel tank on the floor. It just leaks straight out the carburetor, which is a bit annoying. So that means every time you park up, you have to open your bonnet, turn your fuel off. But we look over these things. There was quite a funny thing that I had with it. When I got it, I had no idea how you check the engine oil level, because obviously I was looking for a dipstick. But on this, it doesn't have a dipstick. It has something I've never seen before. Made a bit of a fool out of me. It had the oil filler. I thought, well, where on earth is the dipstick? Look how small the starter is. Electric start as well. Imagine 1923, over 100 years ago, and people were starting stuff with electric starter. None of this hand crank nonsense. Anyway, dipstick. So I looked both sides for ages and I couldn't find a dipstick. Then I found this tap here, and then when you look underneath, if you just come down here, when you open that tap, can you see that weird thing there? When you open the tap, what it does is it'll drop a bit of oil out. So when it does that, you know when you're parked on level ground that you've got the right amount of oil. If you open that tap and oil doesn't come out when you're parked on level ground, you need to put some in it. That's how sophisticated that is. Also, another cool little thing, when you've been parked up for years and you're trying to get it going and maybe the fuel's ran back or whatever, you've got these little valves on the top here. You can open them up, put a tiny little squirt of petrol into each cylinder and then close them off. And that sort of like puts fuel straight in the cylinder, which helps with starting. And also, if you've got a weak battery, you can always open a couple of them up, crank it over to get the compression down. So that's a cool little feature, which you don't see on modern stuff. I don't know what they're called, but I really like that. I wish more petrol engines had that. So basically you can get the old easy start straight in. This doesn't need easy start. It's actually probably my most reliable car. The only thing I've had to do, touch wood, is charge it, because at the moment it isn't charging itself. And it's got these massive great lights on the front, which you would think would be like candle-lit jam jars, but they're actually really, really powerful. Better than a lot of the modern cars have had. Also, another little cool thing, it took me ages to realise, I put the bonnet down, but the temperature gauge, which you'd normally find inside on most things, and on this, the temperature gauge is actually the radiator filler cap. So when you look here, you've got like a thermometer, and when you're going along, the old red line comes up here. But you do need to look. You can't just see it from the driver's area. You have to get your head dead in line with this bonnet. So if you were the driver, you can't see it, you have to do a bit of this, which isn't ideal, but quite cool and unusual. And it's a little bit like if you're a farmer out there, you've probably got a Fortune Standard N tractor in the hedge somewhere, like we do. And that had a very similar thing. At the end of the tractor bonnet, you had one of those. So that reminds me of Grandad's Standard N, which is pretty cool. Also, this car didn't have indicators, which is a bit unusual, but someone has retrofitted some indicators on this so you can actually turn. These are just side lights, or should be, but they are now indicators as well. And the other weird thing that it hasn't got, which every car has, is it's got no mirrors. And you'd think that that's not a problem, but when you're used to driving with mirrors, trying to drive a car with no mirrors feels really, really dangerous, like motorcyclists, any sort of person on a bike, to be fair. And even backing up, it is, yeah, although it's a narrow little car, well, it's quite a big car, but it's quite narrow. I don't like the no mirrors, so I'm probably going to have to put some on. But they didn't have them, so I don't know, let me know in the comments. Is that spoiling it, putting mirrors on? I don't want to crash it or run a cyclist over. That would be terrible. But yeah, if I should do that. The other thing I'll show you while we're here is a lot of old-fashioned cars, or cars of this age, didn't actually have front brakes. And amazingly, this did. And it has a really strange system of making the front brakes apply. You've got like a universal joint, like off a prop shaft, and then a cable over here. And that's quite unusual. Most old cars, they've just had literally cable brakes, which is like that, but they've put some sort of strange shaft in, which to me looks better and more simple. And you haven't got a cable that's continuously bending, because everyone knows when you just keep bending stuff, eventually it snaps. So that was pretty cool. The brakes, however, are quite rubbish. And what I have to do if there's an emergency stop, or shall I just say stopping hard, let's not say emergency stop, you cannot emergency stop in one of these, let's just make that clear. If you did crash this, you would just be a steering wheel and splinters, because the body's all wooden, covered in aluminium, and that's why you see quite often on old cars like this, they skin them with a little layer of aluminium, and you often get cracks, which is why if you look back at some old Bentleys, they'll have like a leather tub. And the reason they had a leather tub is partly because posh people didn't like the fact that their Bentleys were having these cracks in them, so Bentley come up with a genius idea of, we'll just cover that up with some leather. Take a listen to this. So everyone's probably been in a Land Rover, and everyone knows how crap the doors are on a Land Rover Defender. This car is 100 years old, and the doors all shut absolutely beautifully, which is a little detail, but I really like that. I mean, can you like a car just because the doors close nicely? I think you can. Another queer little thing about it, have a look here. Well, it's all got, I've just worked out how to work the interior lights 100 years ago. So you've got a handbrake, like a normal car, but you've got your clutch, accelerator and a brake, which is in quite a strange order, but I'll be honest, I quite like that. When you get used to it, it's quite good. And on the steering wheel, you've got like some protractor like you see at school. And that's actually to adjust the timing. It's called the advance and retard. That, I'm not being derogatory, that's what it's called. And that just basically, if you're starting in colder weathers or when the engine's at a different temperature, you adjust the timing to suit so you can make the car run a bit better. But in here you've got a clock, and it looks like it's painted on. It looks like a picture, doesn't it? But that is actually a working clock, and you can wind it up here and change the time. That does work when you wind it. It's done 49,000 miles from new. That's your speedo. Apparently it can do 50 mile an hour, or 55, is it? 54? We'll try that in a bit, but I can pretty much guarantee that it isn't going to do that. It's also quite scary because on modern roads, if you get a road that has had a lot of lorries go over it, the road actually gets a bit of a a bit of a well, and it feels like you're on train tracks. It sort of pulls you all over the place because you've got tiny little biscuit wheels on this thing. Then you've got your oil pressure gauge, which all works, and you've got your ammeter, which also works, which is always telling me that it's not charging. And you've even got gas, because although it's London built, they've still kept some American terms, so that's actually petrol. Let's get that straight, America. Gas is a gas. Liquid, like petrol, that's a liquid, not a gas. I'm sure people will be whinging about that. Also, it's got a little bit like a Defender. It's got a vent. So basically, it's like a Land Rover Defender, but way better. And 100 years old. And probably just as good off-road. Ooh, better have a look in the back, because the back is pretty cool as well. So, how many cars have... Come inside, come inside. How do you turn the... Look, it literally has like... Look at this. That's your interior lights. How many cars have a full-blown drinks cabinet, lit drinks cabinet for that matter? I didn't even know it had lights in it. How cool is that? Crystal glasses. Get your whiskey out. I've never used it, but maybe we should. Even got a mirror in there so you can look at your feet. Ashtrays. And, of course, you'd be smoking your cigar in these things because it's 1923. So it actually has cigar hatches, not sunroofs. It has tiny little cigar hatches. How cool is that? Like, what car has a cigar hatch? And also, we're in the back of the car. The door's there. How many cars have wind down quarter lights in the rear and wind down windows on the doors? There's so many winders on this car. It's ridiculous. What other cars have that? I think that is a cool little thing. And you've got, when you don't want to see the poor people outside, you know, and the famine and all that, you just close that down and then no one can see you. You've even got one I didn't know it was sprung loaded. You've even got them all in the back, so you can shut off the outside world. I'm surprised they haven't written. Can you think how old they are? You've got these cool little handles for when you're getting somewhere in a hurry or you're into other things. Shall we take it for a little drive down the road now? Yeah, I think so. Let's show you the starting procedure of the Packard Six Sedan. Right, now, with the help of Ted, we're going to show you the starting procedure of the Packard. So, like I said before, you have to open your bonnet, turn your fuel on. Now, this hasn't been ran for quite some time. Probably 2 weeks, probably more. I don't really know, can't really remember. Anyway, I'll show you. We'll see how well it starts anyway. Right, so you've got, there's no keys with this. Let me turn the inferior light back on. There it is. You've got no keys. It's push to start, not literally push it, but so you turn your ignition on like that. You make sure you're in neutral, and what I do, I give it a couple of presses on the old accelerator, and then down there you've got a button, and you just press that. That's not sounding very hopeful, is it? Just a minute, and I'm sure it'll burst into life. There's never any doubt. A couple more primes. There it was. Just getting its fuel up, that's all it was. Let's go for a ride. We're now out on the open roads, and you have to... I'm just gonna start that again. Have to double the clutch on this, but I always get it wrong, so... There's first. So 3-speed manual transmission. One of the most simplest transmissions in the world. There we go. And occasionally I'm only human, I forget how it works. It's got a whiny gearbox in second gear, like a Nissan GTR. But in third, like like velvet. You can't hear a thing. It's a beautiful thing. Totally different car in third gear. You can actually have a conversation, even with the people in the back, if you've got people in the back. It's actually, for an old car, really nice to drive, but it does wander a little bit. You've got this massive wooden steering wheel like driving a boat. But I just really like it. I've got a windscreen wiper. No idea if that works. I've never drove this car. That's making vacuum noises. Someone I'm sure will know how that works. I don't know how that works. So if you know how to work my windscreen wiper, leave a comment. What? It wasn't Clive. I don't know who that was. So it also has an opening safari front window, and that's because in 1923 all the Americans were doing was shooting each other as gangsters with round drum Thompsons, because that's, let's be honest, if you bought this car you were probably moving liquor about in the Prohibition area, so you needed all these windows that wound down so you can get your Thompson out the window and shoot your enemy gang members, probably driven by Al Capone himself. So that's quite an interesting thing. So you've got lots of windows that open. I would open it, but it is England, and if we opened it, it'd be like a wind tunnel in here, and people already complain about the sound quality, so I apologise, but we are in a car that is over 100 years old, and I'm struggling to keep in a straight line now because this road is particularly buggered. It has got very, very thin little biscuit wheels. Shall we show you what an emergency stop looks like? Are you ready? We're doing 25 miles per hour, right, or 20 now. Let's try and get on a straight bit. We'll get up to 25. You ready? And emergency stop. I'm pretty sure if anyone did pull in front of us, they would be dead. We would be dead. Well, we'd be splintered. Be full of splinters. So the brakes on these old cars aren't the best, but really, what would you expect for a car this age? Now, we did say we would see if we could achieve the top speed. So when I get off this crappy little road, get onto the autobahn, we'll see if we can reach the top speed. It's got a really cool klaxon. That's a proper car sound, that is it. I'm getting better with these gears, aren't I? Look at the difference between third gear. Anyway, now we are going to attempt the world's speed record in a Packard Six Sedan, which I'm quite scared about because there's a certain chance of dying if anything or anyone pulls out in front of us. So we'll make sure we've got a clear bit of road. Just going to get round this slight bend. I don't want the wheels to buckle. I always think spoke wheels must be really, really weak when you go around a corner, but they haven't buckled on me yet. A mate of mine races old cars, and how the hell he dares, so I just think they just buckle a wheel on spokes. Here we go, right, building up the speed. 35. 40. Oh my god, don't pull out in front of me. 45. We are nearly there. Still 45. Still 45 in a bit. Struggling to keep in a straight line. Nearly. No, we're losing speed again. This is absolutely everything. I mean, it is shaped like a brick. I'm struggling to keep in a straight line. So they lied to us, bastards. It does not do 55 mile an hour. It does 45 and a bit. And to be honest, it's quite fast enough, really. I don't really drive it much over 40. I don't actually like thrashing its engine. That's the most thrashing I've done in it. I've got better vehicles to thrash than this whole thing now. There's my indicator. That was our little journey in the Packard. And for all those wondering, it smells like musty old damp in here. So I'm told, I've got no sense of smell, but yeah, so that's what it smells like. So I think I'm going to try and invest in one of those little car bubble things and some of those dehumidifiers to keep it a little bit nicer. But it is old, it's going to smell a bit damp. But yeah, so anyway, hope you all enjoyed this video on the Packard. Another thing I'll mention is we are teaming up with our friends at Military Astoria. And more importantly, Astoria prize draws. And at the moment, you've got the chance to win another slatted front World War II Jeep for £5. Now, I wouldn't publicise it if I thought they were dodgy. A lot of people go, oh, it's a scam. It's literally not a scam. We've actually just done one Jeep. You've probably seen us mention it in one or two videos, and the bloke actually still hasn't claimed it yet. So if you're listening, you need to claim it. We've actually extended your claim period. So if you're listening, Mr. P. Dumphy from Skipton, reply to the emails. And you know, because it's a new thing, we are doing it slightly different now. So you've got to leave your number, and we will give you a ring. Or maybe I might give you a ring and say you've won this. We are teaming up with them, and we might be raffling off some vehicles of our own. Not the Packard. I like this too much, but who knows? We could be raffling something in the very, very early future. And maybe we shall offer the experience that if you win the raffle, that you could come up and meet us if you really wanted to do that, and have a play with said vehicle at here, and we'll show you around the place. Because a lot of people keep saying, oh, can we come up and have a look? Well, no, we're not a museum, and this is where I live, so I try to keep it a bit private. But I suppose exceptions could be made for raffle winners. I hope you did enjoy this video, like I said before. I don't know why I keep repeating myself. I need a cup of tea, so don't forget to dislike and unsubscribe, and we'll see you again.